Hello everyone, this is our third video, and the focus of this video is to learn about the developmental spelling analysis, the spelling assessment that you are learning this semester and will practice to do on your own. First we'll do it together, and then you'll do it on your own. And so I'll start talking about the PowerPoint that I want you to pull up is the Spelling is Developmental PowerPoint. I'm not going to go through this entire PowerPoint, but one thing the first slide shows you just that how spelling is a developmental process. We move from the sound level to the pattern level to the meaning level. In general, the sound level is in the emergent stage where they're completely focusing, not completely, but mostly focusing on sounds, but they're also learning their alphabet and the sounds that go with the letters of the alphabet. But also in the letter name stage, they are focusing on sound and differences of sound, mostly short vowel sounds, and then differences between blends and digraphs. But they also are working on patterns because they're looking at the patterns of words, like with word families in particular. And then within word pattern stage, the focus shifts to patterns, but yet in the beginning of the stage in particular, the students are focusing on the differences in sounds. Like they might be focusing on the different long vowel sounds or R-controlled sounds, or comparing long vowel to R-controlled sounds. But then they're going to really focus on the pattern of words. And when they get into the part of the stage when they're really focusing on patterns and not patterns and the sound differences in sound, then they're going to be also working on the way different long vowel patterns are spelled. They're going to be working on R-controlled vowels, on complex consonant clusters, and on ambiguous or abstract vowels. And then finally, they're going to be working on the meaning layer. Within word pattern stage, they start to work on the meaning layer when they are at the end of the stage working on homophones with words that have the same sound but have different meanings. And then they will work on, when they get to the syllables and affixes stage, it's a lot about pattern and meaning, but they get into the role that meaning plays. And then the derivational relation stage, the way words are spelled is based a lot on the meaning, the parts of the words and how the parts of the words have meaning. And we talked about that we talked about language, because those are basically, how morphemes are parts of words that have meaning, and that now they're learning how to spell those parts of words. Oh. So I'm not gonna go through all of this PowerPoint because I want you to read it on your own. You can see the different examples and how the spelling stages match with the the different literacy stages. So letter name spellers are the beginning stage of literacy development. Within word pattern spellers are in the transitional stage, which is what we're going to talk about next in our class, the week after next, and or next week. And then syllables and affixes they are intermediate readers, and derivational relation spellers are advanced readers. One of the things that's important to understand about spelling is that one of the reasons why we do word study is because it helps us to learn to kind of understand how words work. Now, memorization is something that is part of learning how to spell, but it should not be the only way that they learn how to spell. So we do have to, sometimes they have to memorize spellings, but the most important thing about word study is it's helping them to, in the kind of spelling instruction we want to have in our classrooms, is to help the students to really understand how words work as they go from through the developmental stages. And so I really want you to focus on these principles of word study. And we're going to talk a lot about, after we do this, a spelling assessment, then we're going to try to find out what students are using but confusing. So that's That's basically their instructional level in spelling, is where they are with their zone of proximal development, where we would focus our instruction. And so we're going to talk about that with the letter name stage and the within word pattern stage specifically. And one of the things that we want to also do in our spelling instruction is to make sure we're comparing things that do with things with words that do with words that don't. And the example I like to share is when I first, I taught fourth grade for many years, and then I became a reading specialist and I started working with first graders. And at the beginning of first grade, I was really not as familiar with where they were developmentally in first grade. And on their spelling assessment at the beginning of the year, they had a student who was spelling the k sound, like for key, with a C instead of a K. And so I actually did a sort of a beginning sound picture sort of C and K. And it was a disaster because those are the same sounds. And when you're going to have, they need to have something to contrast. And so you don't contrast C and K because they have the same beginning sound. You have to contrast like K with B or some other, some other sound. So we want to compare things that do with things with words that don't. We've already talked about, sorting by sight, which is pictures, sorting by sound, which is pictures, and sight, which is using words. So here we have a picture sound for awk and ack, and then we have the words for awk and ack. And begin with obvious contrast first. And then we don't want to hide exceptions. And so I want you to take a moment. I'm going to pause for like 10 seconds or 20 seconds. And I want you to think about what were, I'm going to go to the next slide. It says to avoid rules. What were some of the rules you learned when you were in school? So think about it for about 10 seconds. What were some rules that you learned? So one of the ones you may have thought of, the one that I still think of today, is I before E except after C. That's the one I still use that today. Another one could be when two vowels go a walking, the first one does the talking, like in AI or OA. That is, the first vowel is the one that is the sound that we use. But we want to try to avoid the rules, and we want to help students to really understand why the words are spelled the way they are, to have them come to the understanding. So in our instruction, we help to guide them and use questioning to help them see and make those connections. And then we also, going back to word hunts, we always want to have them go back to the text they're reading and find the words that they're working on or the patterns they're working on. And so we're going to be using in our instruction the direct instruction model, which is where the teacher models the sort for the students, and then the students do the sort under the teacher's supervision, so they can get feedback. And then the teacher then gives, releases some control to the students, because then they go back to their seats and they get to practice it on their own, and then they can work together with other students in their groups to work on the features throughout the week. And in general, we choose words that they can read, or that they should be able to read. They can easily decode. You want to have at least 2 categories. So word study is built upon having 2 categories at least to compare and contrast, and then to have no more than 4, because it gets to be too much if you have more than 4. And then it depends on how many categories you have, but usually we would have maybe 5 to 7 pictures and words, or depending what the sort is, 5 to 7 in each category. And so there's a lot of resources out there. There are Words Their Way has supplemental text, and there's Kathy Gonski, who's the author of the Developmental Spelling Analysis. She has She has different resources available that you can use, and I'll post some of those pictures of those resources on Blackboard. So the DSA is designed that there's one for the letter name stage, one for within word pattern, and one list. Well, there's two versions of each of these four stages. But there's a list, 25 words for letter name, 25 words for within word pattern, 25 words for, and she calls it syllable juncture because in the first several editions of Words Their Way, the syllables and affixes stage was called the syllable juncture stage, and Kathy Gonski still uses that term for that stage. And then for the upper stage, the highest stage of spelling development, the first couple editions of Words Their Way called it the derivational constancy stage, and then they changed it to derivational relations, but Kathy Gonski still calls it the derivational constancy stage. So on the DSA, each word has one feature that's targeted. And it's very easy to score because you look at the way the students spell the word. If they have the underlying feature correct, they get a point. If they have the whole word correct, they get a point, and so they can get 2 points total if the feature and the word are correct. They only get 1 point if the feature is correct, if the word is not correct. And then they get a 0 if the feature and the word are correct. So if you look at the spelling and they don't have the feature correct, we know they're going to have a 0 on that word. But the points are based on two things: having the feature correct and having the word correct. So here are some examples. So here we have in the letter name stage, the first word is jet, and the underlying feature is the J which is an affricate sound. And so so for spelling it J-I-T, the student had the underlying feature correct, but not the whole word correct. So they would only get a score of, and think to yourself, 1. The next one, the word is fit, and the underlying feature is the short I, and the student spelled the word F-E-T, so the student did not get the short vowel correct or the targeted feature correct, so we know they're going to have a 0. In the within word pattern stage, there are features called complex consonants, and the bridge is spelled D-G-E, and the student spelled it G-E, so then it would be a 0 because they did not have the underlying feature correct or the word correct. And then finally, fear is an R-controlled, it's actually a long vowel R-controlled word, and the student spelled the underlying feature E-A-R, and then had the whole word correct, so that would be a score of 2. And so we're going to practice this. Before we talk about interpreting it, I'm going to pull up I'm going to share my screen. So you can see this is actually where you would put all your students in your class. If you did the DSA with your entire class, which is what most teachers will do. In the schools where they use the DSA, which in this area, it's some schools use the DSA, and in some schools they use Words Their Way. Some schools will only use the PAL spelling assessment, but there are a number of schools that use the DSA. And so with the DSA, this is where you would put each of your students, and you would put their scores for each of the features, and then their stage score, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But here, this helps to look at, and make it a little bigger. So the DSA is organized around having 5 features per stage. And so for the letter name stage, we have A is initial and final consonants, so that beginning and ending sound. B are initial consonants, consonant blends and digraphs. C are short vowels. D are affricates, and there are two sounds that have the affricate sound, and it has to do with how your mouth feels when you say it. But the J sound and the Ch sound are the affricate sounds. And so there are 4 different ways that we spell the affricate sound: J, CH, DR, which is dr, like in drum, and TR, like the tr, like in tree. And then the final consonant blends and digraphs. And Kathy Gonski actually includes those preconsonant nasals as a final consonant blend. And well, really it's a final consonant blend, not digraph. One thing that where Words Their Way and Kathy Gonski kind of diverge or do things a little bit differently in a different order is that Words Their Way, they focus on doing short vowel word families first before doing blends and digraphs, especially initial blends and digraphs. But Kathy Gonski puts those first. So, and then we go to the within word pattern stage. And that once again, there are 5 features, and you're going to actually have to practice doing the within word pattern, scoring the within word pattern stage practice spelling, and then that's going to be part of your classwork. But so it starts with F, which is the vowel consonant E long vowel pattern. R control vowels, which we have the AR as in car, the OR as in corn, and then IR, ER, UR, which all have the sound. Those are the short R control vowels, but then we also have long R control vowels. Like we have the AIR and ARE, like in care and hair, that are long AR controlled. Then we have now what's interesting is the long OR controlled, like in core, CORE, has the same sound as a short OR controlled. And then we have the long I are controlled, ire, like in tire, and then URE, like in mule. I mean, no, not mule. I can't think of a URE right now. Cure. And then most of the long ER controls are EAR or EER. We have very few that are ERE. And then other common long vowels like AI, IGH, OA, EA, EE, all those different sounds. And then complex consonants, which is 3, usually if they're at the beginning of a word, they're going to be 3-letter blends, like the STR in street, SPL in splash are examples. At the end of a word, they're going to be like the TCH in patch or the DGE in bridge. And then abstract vowels are neither long nor short nor long nor are controlled, but they're like the oi and the and ow and aw, like all those different kinds of vowel sounds that are neither long nor short. And for today, we're not going to focus on what the syllable juncture or derivational consonancy stage would be. We're going to focus today on the letter name stage. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to I want you to open up the 2 things. We have, so here we have there's a DSA letter name answer card. This is in the chapter, the Gonski chapter on Blackboard for our e-reserve readings. That has all the information about administering the DSA. It has the answer cards. It has the sentences you would give to a student as you administered it, the student or students. In our case, you would administer it to 1 student and then plan a lesson around the results. And so as you can see, there's 1 feature underlined. So for number 1, it's a J, and J is a D, and D is an affricate. 2 is SH, is underlined. That's B, and that's an initial, in this case, an initial digraph. 3, the underlying feature is E, which is C, which is a short vowel. Okay? So I want everyone to open up the packet for the DSA sample spellings. And there's one on Vincent. So I want you to open up Vincent. And I'm actually going to go through this the whole thing and show you how I'm going to score this, okay? So for number 1, Vincent has the J correct, but he does not have the short E. So he only gets 1 point, but I want you to fill this out as I go. So I want you to do this with me. I'm also going to zoom, okay? All right, number 2, ship. Vincent has the SH, which is the underlying feature, and but he has the whole word correct, so he actually is going to have 2 points. Okay, so he gets 2 points as he has the underlying feature correct and the whole word correct. Number 3 is the word is bet, and Vincent, the underlying feature is a short E, but he does not have that correct, so he's going to have a 0. And then number 4, the word is got, and it's the beginning sound G, but think about those sounds that are in the back of our mouths, g, 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 and k, k, k. He confused those sounds, so he doesn't have the underlying feature, and he doesn't even have the vowel sound, but he has a 0 for number 4. Number 5 is cap, and the underlying feature is an A, which he got correct, and he has a whole word correct, so he gets a 2. Now, number 6 is an interesting situation because on the DSA, if a student does a mirror reversal of a word, and think back to Evan, he did a mirror reversal of the J in jet, but we knew it was a J because it was not a letter that looks like another letter. But in this case, if you reverse a B or a D or a B and a P, those can be mirror reversals, but we have to make sure we ask the student what they thought it was. In this case, we're going to assume that he meant to do a D. So he has the underlying feature, but he doesn't have the word, the rest of the word, so he only gets a 1 for that word. Number 7 for bump, he doesn't have the underlying feature, and he doesn't have the vowel, so he actually has a 0. And number 8 for much, he has an underlying feature, but he doesn't have the rest of the word correct, so he has a 1. Number 9, and notice that that's an affricate because the ch sound is an affricate sound. Number 9 is with, and he has the underlying feature and he has the whole word correct, so that is a 2. Number 10 is map. He has the underlying feature and he has the whole word, so he has a 2. Number 11 is hop. He has the underlying feature and he has the word, so he has another 2. Number 12 is plan. He has the underlying feature and the word correct, so he has a 2 again. Number 13 is the underlying feature is a TH. He has that correct and he has the whole word correct, so he has a 2. Number 14 is slid. He has the underlying feature, but he does not have the vowel correct, so he actually has a 1. And then 15 is mud. He does not have the underlying feature, so he has a 0. Now we go up to the next column. Number 16 is grab. And once again, he spelled that G sound with a K and spelled it C-R-A, and he actually did another reversal with the B and D. But he has the underlying feature is not correct, so we know that it's going to be a 0. And number 17 is chop. He has the CH correct, but not the vowel sound, so he has a 1. Number 18 is the underlying feature is the ST in fast, and he has that, and he has the whole word correct, so he's good. He gets a 2. Number 19 is dish, and he has the underlying feature correct and the whole word correct, so he gets a 2. Number 20 is went. He has the underlying feature, the NT, that nasal, which Kathy Gonski calls an ending blend. But he doesn't have the vowel sound, so he has a 1. For 21, he has, the word is win, the underlying feature is the N, which he has, and he has the word correct, so he gets a 2. 22 is fed. He has the underlying feature, which is the initial consonant F, but he does not have the vowel, so he has a 1. And for 23, trip, he has the beginning, the affricate TR, the underlying feature, but he doesn't have the vowel sound, so he has a 1. And then 24 is rub. He has the underlying feature, but he doesn't have the vowel sound, so we're going to give him a 1. And 25 is fit, and the underlying feature is the short I, which he does not have, so he gets a 0. Okay? So now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to count how many 2s he has, but we're only going to count them 1 time. So basically, we're counting how many words are correct. Okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So he has a stage score of 10. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, what does that mean? Well, so for a stage score, I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, so if their score is between a 12 and a 21, we consider them to be solid in that stage. And you don't need to go up or down to give them a different stage assessment. Okay, so in this case, if he had gotten a 22 to 25 on the letter name, we would go up and give him the within word pattern. If they're below 12, 0 to 11, then they might not quite be ready for the stage, and we have to go down and give them the stage before. Now, in the letter name stage, there is not an assessment before. So we can't give them another assessment. So we would just give them, we would say he's early in the stage, and we would figure out how to, what he needed to work on in this stage. If they're above 21, then we would go to the next stage and give them the next stage assessment. Okay? So in this case, going back to Vincent, he is below, so he's below 12, so he's early. And usually we say LN for letter name. So he's early letter name. So we can't go down to another stage to give him a different stage of assessment. Now, the feature scores are really critical as well, because the feature scores are what's going to tell us what we should be teaching. Okay, and there's I'm going to go ahead and do it the long way, and then I'll tell you what the shorter way is afterwards. Okay, so the long way is I'm going to go to each one, and if the student has a 1 or a 2, they get 1 point for the feature. Okay, so for Jet, he gets 1 point for D. Okay, I'm going to try to see if I can. He gets 1 point for D. Okay, 2, he's got a 2, so he gets 1 point for B. Then he's got a 0 on 3, a 0 on 4, but 5, he's got a 2, so he gets 1 point for C. Number 6, he's got a 1, so he gets a 1 point for D. 7 is a 0, so there's no points. 8, he gets a 1 point for D. 9, he has a 2, so he gets 1 point for E. And then 10 is a 2, he gets 1 point for A. 11 is a 2, he gets 1 point for C. 12 is a 2, he gets a 1 point for B. 13's a 2, he gets 1 point for B. 14's a 1, so he gets 1 point for B. 15's a 0, he gets no points. 16 is a 0, he gets no points. 17 is a 1, so he gets 1 point for D. 18 is 2 points, so he gets 1 point for E. 19 is 2 points, he gets 1 point for E. 20 is 1 point, he gets 1 point for E. 21 is 2 points, he gets 1 point for A. 22 is 1 point, he gets 1 point for A. 23 is 1 point, he gets 1 point for D. 24 is 1 point, he gets 1 point for A. And 25 is 0, so he gets no points for C. So he has a 4 for A, a 4 for B, a 2 for C, a 5 for D, and a 4 for E. So the question is, what does that mean? Okay? So, go back to this PowerPoint for a moment. So what we're trying to figure out is, with the feature scores, is what the child knows, which is what is correct, what they're using but confusing, and what they don't know, or what's absent. So what's correct would be what they have at their independent level. What they're using but confusing is at their instructional level, and what's absent is at their frustration level. And so then our instruction is going to be what they're using but confusing, okay? We don't want to have them doing things that are too difficult for them, but we want to have them doing what they're using but confusing. And so you also have on Blackboard a spelling analysis chart. So the spelling analysis chart is organized by what words are correct, what's using but confusing, and what's absent. And in general, we use as a guide the feature scores that are 4 to 5 are what's correct. What's using but confusing is what is 2 to 3, the feature score that's 2 to 3, and then absent would be 0 to 1. Okay? And so Vincent has initial and final consonants correct, so he got a 4. He has initial, blends, and digraphs correct, so he got a 4. But on short vowels, he got a 2, so that's what he is using but confusing. And then for Africans, he got a 5, so that he has that correct. And then for E, final blends and digraphs, he got a 4, so that's correct. So final blends and digraphs are correct. Now, when we're thinking about short vowels, and in this case, on the DSA, there's nothing that's absent. And that's one of the things about the DSA is that there could be things that we don't know if there's anything that's absent when on the DSA. But in this case, there's no features that are absent. So we have to decide what are we going to teach. So now when we look at Vincent's the mistakes he made, and also he has a lot of 1s, and the 1s mean that he got the feature correct, but he didn't get the part of the word correct. And in most of those cases, he didn't get the correct vowel sound. And so if we look at the C words and we look at the words where he got 1s, we have a lot of confusion. He had A for E. He had A for O. We have A for U, O for U, E for I I for E. So these are the kind of the confusions he's having. In general, or I think from the words that were short A, he got those correct. So he feels very comfortable with short A, but he's using short A for a lot of other vowels as well. And so that's where we definitely want to work on one of these comparisons. And the one that we would start with is short A versus short O, okay? And that's the sort that is in that packet with Vincent, to see the short A and short O. And so I'm going to just do a little model of this sort. All right, so here are our headers for short A and short O. One of the things about these headers is that these headers are have the short vowel sound at the beginning of the word, and the pictures we're going to sort and the words we're going to sort will have the vowel sound in the middle. So I'm just going to do an example of how we would do this kind of sorting or modeling the sort. So here is chop. Here we go. Chop, chop, apple, chop, octopus. We can actually feel how the does not feel the same in our mouth as a short A, but it does feel the same with short O. Then we have flag, flat apple, flat octopus. Flag and apple have the same short vowel sound, which is the A sound. And here's a picture of cash, cat apple, cat octopus. Cash and apple have the same short vowel, the A sound. So I'm going to put cash with apple. And the last one I'm going to do is shot apple, shot octopus. Shot and octopus have the same short vowel, ah. So I'm going to put shot with octopus. So here we would do the pictures, and then we would check those, and then we would do the words like snap apple, snap octopus. Snap and apple have the same sound when I put snap with apple. Shot apple, shot octopus. Shop and octopus have the same sound, ah. Here we have clap apple, clap octopus. Clap and apple have the same short vowel sound, the A sound. I'm going to do one more. Stop, apple, stop, octopus. Stop and octopus have the same short vowel, ah. So I'm going to put stop with octopus. Okay? And so I'm going to go back. And then, of course, we would check those. We would check our sort, and we would see if there were any changes that needed to be made, and then we would always go through and we would review each category, and we would really emphasize that that middle short vowel for the students. All right, so now, before I end this video, I'm going to show one more thing, because you're going to be focusing on the within word pattern, and you're actually going to, there's a within word pattern sort, DSA, for Annie that you're going to practice scoring, and then as part of your classwork this week. And then I want to show you as a flip book that would be at the beginning of the within word pattern stage. So in the within word pattern stage, they are trying to first understand that the vowel sound may not just be a one-to-one letter sound correspondence. The vowel sound may have a pattern. And the first pattern they learn is the silent E marker. So this is another flip book, but this is a different kind of flip book because now we're flipping open to the silent E marker to make the short vowel sound, cap, become cape, okay? And then we have tap becomes tape. And then we have rat becomes rate. And mad becomes made. Like those are just some examples of how, of the first word, the first pattern that they're going to learn in the within word pattern stage. And so there will be the PowerPoint will be the transition, transitional reader PowerPoint, where it's going to focus on the within word pattern stage, and it will focus on fluency and different fluency activities. So you're going to then look at that PowerPoint and read through it, and we're going to do different activities to think about within word pattern stage and fluency activities to really focus on, because in the transitional stage, this is when the students move from reading orally to reading silently, now they're going to read silently. There's a lot of transitions that happen in the transitional reader stage. The first is they transition to reading silently. They also are going to be really picking up on their speed in the reading and working on their fluency. And their transition from spelling words, they're still going to spell one syllable words in the within word pattern stage, but they're going to move from the letter name stage where they spelled one syllable words, where there was always a one-to-one letter sound correspondent with short vowels, to now they're going to be spelling words that have patterns. They're still one syllable, but they're going to be spelling patterns of words like long vowels and are controlled and ambiguous or abstract vowels. And so that's what will be the next task after this. So thank you very much.